Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to take a look at the latest Cities Skylines 2 trailer. Now this one is pretty promising because this one is going to show the actual gameplay footage. Now let's take a look at the trailer itself. Oh, footage captured in game, sounds pretty promising. Now the first thing we see is an intersection, and it seems to be a highway connecting to one of the arterial roads, and it does look pretty good. The roads are well aligned, so we have the parallel highway roads, and yeah, if you take a look here, that's pretty neat. So probably they did add the parallel road tool to the actual game. And we see the retaining wall. The retaining wall, it doesn't look all that great, to be honest. But there is a nice little touch here, so you can see where it ends and where it starts. It sort of levels into the surface, which is pretty nice. And we already see some issues with the intersection markings here. So this is not... probably they're going to fix it, or there is some kind of an issue here. And then right here as well, some black spots. So that's something we're very familiar with from the previous game, from the original game. And we have a pedestrian crossing, which seems to be misplaced, to be honest. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's just a one-off, or maybe some of the glitches and some of the bugs from the original game are going to transfer to the new one as well. Now it's kind of weird. So here we have the retaining wall, and here we have sort of the soundproofing wall, and this one is just, in the end, is just cut off. Here we have a nice little transition, which is nice. The trees are looking a little bit better, and the nice thing here is that the trees and the networks, wherever they collide, it doesn't look that weird anymore. So it doesn't look like it's growing through the road. You can see that the branches are actually above the road, which is really nice. And this is a tram road. Does look okay. It does look okay. The only thing is here, once again, the pedestrian crossing doesn't look all that great, and this thing here just looks a little bit odd, which is fine. The overall picture looks pretty good. We have the speed limit posted, so there is a chance that they actually used some of the mods, something that used to be the mods that we'll have to add later on, and added it to the base game, which is nice. Let's take a look at the next bit. The traffic seems to be flowing all right, so I'm guessing there might be more ways to control the traffic and do the lane management. Now this is where things get interesting. We see the downtown, and we see the other side of the river. I don't see any bridges so far, but it does look all right. You can see that the graphics have been improved. A nice thing, or a petrol station, whatever you want to call it. Does seem to render a little bit better, and the transition seems more natural. In the base game, you're considering how close these two, the intersection and the crossing, are. In the base game, you would have to use mods to get that looking nice and neat. Here it seems like it has to be the part of the base game. And one of the issues with the trailer that I personally have is most of it says that there's going to be two, at the very least, two building themes, but most of it just looks very American. You see a whole bunch of highways, you see a whole bunch of, to be honest, quite ugly looking buildings, and the downtown, we'll see how that goes, but so far the graphics are pretty good. The buildings, I'm not a big fan, to be honest. Apparently there's going to be some packs to have Asian themes and probably Middle Eastern themes. We'll see how that goes later on. The base game is probably going to come with European and US theme. Okay, so we have some row houses, we have some low density. It does look alright. And if you take a look at... you don't get those hot dog vans anymore, and actually some of the cars are resembling real life cars, so this is probably just a copy of a Smart, which is not bad. and it does look pretty good. So that's one of the things that in the previous game, if you wanted to have a nice looking bridge, you would have to look for assets on the workshop, or you would have to get the Bridges and Piers DLC. I'm suspecting that's a base game, so it does look pretty nice. And we got the roundabout. The markings are a little bit weird, to be honest, like especially if you look at this area here. But it's not that bad. It's not that bad. For the base game, should be absolutely fine. Once again, the rail crossing is pretty nice. That is something I really like about this trailer. All the rail crossings, they do look natural and they look exactly the way they're supposed to. They don't look as weird as the original game. Hold on a sec. We've got... Yeah, we missed a bit here. So we've got trains and two types of trains. Let's see what we have here. That's way too far. Okay, so we have a passenger train and a freight train. So the passenger one actually looks like we might be getting some high-speed rail trains, more modern-looking models, and probably higher speed than the original game, which is really nice. Hopefully that's going to turn out to be true. And we've got some dead trees. I don't know what happened there. The only issue I have here is the ones that are planted on the road that don't have any planters around them, so it does look a little bit odd. But the good thing is you can see that the trees are all different sizes. The quality of the models and renderings is way, way better than the first game. Now we've got a nice looking tram, so that's going to be one of the latest additions. The nice thing is most of the models are looking way nicer than the original game. Once again, the cars are actually resembling real-life cars, brands and models. We have some motorcycles here, and we have, yeah, the tram is absolutely great. We got some vans, and the lorries, yeah, they look really nice. They look really nice. And this little roundabout, I don't know how much sense it makes to have a tram just cutting through the roundabout. Not a big fan of that, but the way that the network looks is pretty good. And this thing, as we already know, is a university. Now that is something really exciting, something we're going to come back to later on. And once again, the rendering distance is pretty good. You can see here on top of the mountains something that looks like snow, which is pretty nice. So we're getting seasons, and on top of that, you can actually have the real life situation. I'm guessing here that you can have an actual life situation where it could be summer, but if you go up the mountains, you're going to find some snow on top, which is really nice. We've got a better designed and better looking parking, but it does seem that parking is still a big thing in Cities Skylines too, so we're going to come back to this later. The angle at which these roads are meeting here is pretty interesting. I'm guessing they don't really use nods anymore, or not as much. They probably function differently, which is nice and allows for more flexibility. And a tiny, nice looking detail here. If you look at the roundabout, you can tell that the areas that are getting used the most, they sort of have these sort of lighter color, so you can tell that which way the cars are normally going. So some of these are still looking nice and new, and some of it does look a little bit aged, which is nice, which is a nice little touch. These markings look a little bit weird. I don't know what's the reason for that. So that's a straight on. Why does it have to curve a little bit? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll know once the game is out. Let's take a look at the next bit. Oh, this is really nice. This is really nice. So from the get-go, we're getting seasons, we're getting different weather, we're getting nice looking clouds, and we're getting day and night cycle, which is pretty nice. And everything does look, the light effects, the clouds, it does look way better than the original game. Now here's where it gets interesting. Once again, speaking of light effects, you can see that this is probably sunrise or sunset. I can't really tell, to be honest. But you do have a little bit of that like haze looking kind of situation, which is nice. The light effects are so much better. And then you can see it's either the steam or the smoke coming up. That is pretty good. and the water now actually has reflections, which is pretty nice as well. It's kind of an interesting choice of a map for the first city that I wanted to put in the trailer. It's sort of like a tiny New York, but then not really. So you got this sort of area that is a downtown in the trailer, and then on the outskirts you have industry and low density residential. The sun does look really nice. That is something that you would have to get a mode for in the previous game. Now the terraforming tools are looking so much better. If you take a look at the textures here, if you do have a sloped surface, it doesn't look as weird as it used to be. The edges here around the water are looking a little bit odd, but the water itself, the texture is much better, the reflections are much better. And one of the other things that got incorporated into the base game is apparently the brushes that you can adjust more accurately, which is a nice little thing, nice little touch. What we have here, we have May 2024, so we now have, we have time, we have date, weather, season, and then 167 tiles. So I'm suspecting the map is... So I'm suspecting the map itself is going to be bigger, and the tiles are probably going to be smaller, because otherwise, I don't know how that's going to function, but it does look quite interesting. We have all the usual things you're used to, demands, parks, districts, zoning, roads, electricity, and all the other services. This section over here is a new addition. I'm wondering what that's going to be. We'll see later on. We have the bulldoze tool, how much money we're making per hour. The happiness rating, which is, it looks a little bit better than the previous game. And so you can actually see how bad can it get. Like the worst, not really happy, kind of happy, happy, and really happy, which is a little bit more informative. Now we have a tool for the screenshots as well, which is really nice. This thing, if you ask me, that should have been gone. I'm wondering if this thing on the bottom here is an updated version of that, but we'll see. What are these two things for? I'm not entirely sure. And we have a map that looks like a transit map, but then we have transit here as well. So that is pretty interesting. I don't know why did it have to be separated. Possibly you use this one for building the transit and this one to actually track the usage and all other data on that. And here we have probably the city statistic, but once again, on top here we have another one with info, so we'll see how that works later on. Now this is a pretty nice thing if you want to build one block at a time and you know exactly the size of your grid. If grid is your thing, once again that's another issue I have with the game. Everything is extremely... It's kind of weird how the Swedish developers, Paradox Interactive, are creating a game where everything is car-centric, everything is in massive grid pattern most of the time, and it's all about highways and cars. We'll come back to that later. For now, let's take a look at the road tool, which has got a few updates. There are a couple tools. Once again, this grid option here as well. And now the nice tiny touch that I don't know if anybody noticed. If you take a look at the roads, it seems like all the pipes and possibly some of the electricity is now under the roads, because you have these three different colored pipes. So I'm suspecting that's going to be that, and that will be a really, really smart move. That will be really nice to see. And once again, I think there might be no nodes in the new road layout, so you can see that you can just drag the road whichever way you want. You can have an intersection at a different angle, and it will let you do that. You don't have to remove the nodes or adjust to them. And we have these tiny roundabouts here, sort of British style roundabouts, and they do look pretty nice. I don't know how functional they're going to be, but they do look nice. That's definitely a better solution than having stop signs here and there. A tiny roundabout would definitely do better than a stop sign. And once again, we also have highways. We have pretty much the same variety of roads, but now we also have intersections, I suspect. This round thing, I have absolutely no idea what that is. And we have parking roads and maintenance buildings. So there is a good chance that maintenance is going to work differently on the roads in this game, so we'll see how that goes. Because in the base game, pretty much you don't have to maintain your roads. Whatever you do is okay. The only benefit you get from adding any kind of maintenance infrastructure is sort of improved happiness of the citizens or whatever that is. If you don't maintain your roads, you're not going to have any issues. So here it might be completely different. We'll see how that goes. Now these intersections are looking really interesting. So there is a good chance that some of the intersection marking tool and the network multi-tool functionality was added to the base game, which is really nice. What else do we have here? We have a whole bunch of different densities. We have a nice looking billboards, not as ugly as they used to be, not as weird, which is a good thing. Industry, yeah, and that's probably transition between the suburbs and the downtown. Once again, looks extremely American. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm wondering what the European theme looks like. Hopefully we'll find out soon. Now this is where it gets interesting. So we've got the residential areas, and now the interesting bit here is residential suitability. So I'm guessing that's going to be based on how close is it to the industry, how noisy the streets are, which is a really helpful tool. Signature buildings, I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. I haven't seen a single one in the trailer, so that will be a mystery for now. Residential buildings and ground pollution. Ground pollution has been around since the base game, so nothing new there. A whole bunch of different variations of density. So the high density, I'm guessing some kind of like condo towers. This is probably a mid-rise. What is in between still remains a mystery. I don't know if we're going to get any mixed-use buildings. That would be really nice to have, but I'm not sure of that. And then we sort of have duplexes, and then the low density. Once again, the themes that you have in the base game are European and American one, and I'm guessing everything we see in the trailer is American theme. I'm really wondering what the European one is going to look like. I would be way more interested in that. And then we have the tool mods, once again, the bucket tool, selection, brush, yeah, pretty much the same, just looking a little bit nicer. We do have the same sort of milestone system. Now it's a megalopolis. Okay. New dollar ton. That's an interesting name choice. So this city was built by $2.20. You'll find a link to his video in the comments below. I do recommend you go and watch that and get his perspective on what is it like building this city. And now let's take a look at the next bit. Alright, so the purple one is now office buildings. Now the nice little touch here is office buildings are now probably different in size, so you can choose how high can you go, or it might be a selection between office buildings and office signature buildings, whatever that's supposed to mean. Office suitability, I'm pretty much certain you could build an office anyway. It's not as demanding as residential zone. Pollution is not that much of a concern, but it is nice to have some kind of guidelines and suggestions from the game. We already see a whole bunch of complaints from the buildings, so that's something that we did have in the original game. So this one is looking like it might be the office signature building, whatever that means. Let's take a look at the next bit. Oh, this is really nice. The way these roads connect, you get so much more info. There is something that you would only be able to get with mods, and now you're getting all the angles, distances, and yeah, overlapping items. So it also reminds you of all sorts of things. It does look way nicer than the original game. So the upside of this game being so car centric is that the roads and the road building tools are getting better and better with every update. Once again, highway, yeah, a whole variety of highways and bridges. Now, the interesting thing is they also mentioned that once the base game is out, there is also going to be a DLC for bridges. So I'm not entirely sure if these are part of the base game or they're going to be part of the DLC. Oh, it does look really nice. With all the light effects, does look pretty good. And now we got another bridge and the parallel road tool, and seems like you can adjust the distance between the roads, which is nice. Yeah, if you take a look at the top left corner, those two roads seem to be way closer, and now as you get here to the bridge section, the distance is a bit more reasonable. Does look pretty nice, and it's nice that they added most of the most of the mods that you'd love to have to the base game. That does help quite a bit. Now, the next interesting update here is modular building. So here we have a university, and you can upgrade to add another wing. So this is probably the main building. You got a park, you got your parking lot somewhere here, and that's probably a, what is it? Might be a library actually. Yeah, it says extension wing, a library, and a park. So it's either a library or extension wing. Either way, it does look really nice. Operating districts. So I don't know how that's supposed to work. There is a good chance that you'll be able to set certain districts that can use this university, which also would be quite an interesting thing to do. And now once again, let's take a look at the street. So we still have a lot of street parking. It's not marked, which is kind of an interesting solution. We'll see how that goes. And the speed limits posted on the road itself. So once again, another very American thing, and another thing that used to be only available with mods. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so there was probably a police building added, so everybody's kind of happy with getting more police coverage. And what do we see here? Overlapping items in bullet shape. So yeah, a whole bunch of reminders. The elevation on the roads does look really nice. So all the curves and elevation bits are looking way smoother than the original game. Even with the mods, sometimes it's really hard to get it to look nice and realistic. It seems like it's not going to be an issue with the Cities Skylines too. Now here we've got another building. So this seems to be a tram depot. Yes, seems to be. And we've got another highway. These things, oh, it looks like a really complicated network. And now we see the transit lines on the road, shown on the road. That's really nice. Yeah, so that's the tram road going all the way here. Once again, the tram road crossing roundabout, I don't know how that's going to make sense, but whatever makes you happy. The building itself does look way more realistic, and the layout around it does look way better than the base game. So the tram depot does look like a real proper depot. And here we see another tram. Oh, this one, it does look really good. I don't know if that's the same model, but it looks really nice. Higher quality model. And finally, we have a model that looks like something relevant. You cannot tell a brand, but it is resembling all the modern models, which is a nice thing. And we got a line that's a loop line, and it seems like the whole game UI is looking way better, and it's way more informative compared to the original game, which is nice. And the design is pretty modern, so that's another nice touch. So ticket price, now we can choose ticket price possibly based on the line, which is way better than what we used to have. Assigned vehicles. So pretty much it seems like some of the mods just got integrated into the game, and a better transit controls are another thing that we get as a benefit. Schedule, that's something that we used to have in the base game, in the original Cities Skylines 1, but now it does look a little bit nicer and a little bit easier to understand, which is a nice thing. I'm not entirely sure if this bit is an actual in-game footage. This one definitely is. Let's take a look at this building here. Okay, so now we have the information about people living in the building, and now we can actually take a look at each household. That is a really nice touch. And average wealth. That's another interesting thing. So now you have more information about each building, more information about each resident. So supposedly that's going to help you to make better decisions when you're working on your districts and your streets. And you can also see the demand. So 3 different densities for residential. So I'm guessing it's low density, some kind of mid-rise and high-rise. And then industry and office. And once again, all the cars that are parked on the streets are looking way more realistic than what we used to have. Okay, now another thing is a coal power plant. Now that's another modular building, which is really nice. I think having a modular building makes a lot of sense for industry and university, for service buildings. So now instead of actually building another one, bulldozing the old one, building a new one, or getting an additional one, you can actually upgrade the existing one. So that does make a lot more sense. Okay, now what do we have here? Jail availability, prison availability. Okay, an average crime probability. Escaped crime rate. Police buildings. We don't see any police buildings in this particular view. Prison vans. Oh, now we get prison vans. That's an interesting one. I'm wondering if any of the criminals can escape on the way to prison. That would be really interesting. Crime probability. So crime probability is probably going to be a thing that is going to be under your control. I'm guessing that's going to have something to do with education and how your city economy is doing. That's an interesting thing. What else do we have here? Traffic flow. Traffic flow by the hour is a really nice touch. So we all know that most of the busy cities, they get some kind of, busy hours in the morning and then busy hours in the evening or afternoon, which is another realistic touch for the game. Traffic flow and traffic volume. So now you're getting way more info about each particular road, so you can do way better than when you make your planning decisions, which is another nice touch. But if you look at this road, so there's like a section of this road that gets a lot of volume, and then once it splits out, there is not as much. Okay, that's an interesting thing. And once again, if you take a look at these intersections, these look really nice and smooth. Off ramps and on ramps, that does look pretty good. And the info panel. Okay, now the nice thing about it, it looks a little bit more organized. It seems like we have a little bit less info, but more of the info that we would actually like to have. That is a huge improvement over the original game. Industries. So now we have a better variety of industries. So farming is now separated into animals, crops, fruit and veg, and then all the other, that looks like cotton flower. That is another interesting solution. So I'm guessing there's going to be an option to build some kind of specific farm and have different buildings for that specific farm rather than choosing what to have on your one farm. So I don't know if that makes sense. So for instance, if you do animal products, all your buildings are going to be sort of the same theme, the same look, and they're going to be serving that particular area. So instead of having one farming industry, you're going to have a very specific industry, a very specific area focused on one particular aspect of farming, which is pretty nice. And then most of the assets, okay, so wood and fertile land, that makes sense. That's sort of renewable. And then oil and ore, once it's gone, it's gone. That's something that is another very realistic thing. And once again, the speed limit signs, the trucks. I'm guessing this city was built with the American theme. I really want to see the European one. I'm not a big fan of all this. Okay, now that looks pretty neat. That's almost Need for Speed Cities Skylines. Pretty good graphics. If you're following the truck and all the blur effects, that was pretty nice. Okay, let's take a look here. So once again, I don't know if that's credit that has to be attributed to $2.20 or that's how the new Cities Skylines work, but I don't see a single network that would look out of place or that would look weird, any kind of weird shapes or angles or elevation. Everything looks nice and even, well organized. It looks like a real deal, which is really nice. And we have all kind of, that might be some kind of a unique building. What else do we have here? Bridges. Now these just look like the standard bridges from the first Cities Skylines, so that's definitely not a part of any DLC. Now this one on the right does look a little bit more interesting. That could be something. And then we can also see a tunnel over here. The tunnels do seem to look way more realistic and way more smooth compared to Cities Skylines 1. And now we got the football stadiums. That's really nice. That's really nice. So there's a good chance that most of the content that used to be released with the DLCs is going to be the base game for Cities Skylines 2. And now we see the most appealing one, seasons. Seasons actually changing in-game. That is really nice. And that's your city in the middle of the night. It does look pretty good. The only thing is, it seems like all of the lights are pretty much in the same color temperature, which used to be a little bit, most of them at least, which used to be a bit different for Cities Skylines 1. You could actually choose, once again with all the mods, or depending on the type of road you choose, you could choose the color temperature. Oh, you can see those mountains in the back. That does look pretty nice. You can see the snow on top of those mountains. That is pretty nice. And the fact that you can see it in the middle of the night, that's really nice. And now this one is just CGI. Okay, not much to see here. Coming October 24th. Now you can pre-order the game for $50. Which seems to be a reasonable price considering inflation and that most of the content that used to be DLC is now available with the base game. I don't think I'm going to be pre-ordering one, or should I? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now let's take a look at a couple more things that we find on the Steam shop page. Let's take a look at the screenshots. So this you can see all of your polluting industry. Now you can actually see it in the air, polluting your city's air. That's nice and quite realistic. So probably you're going to get some kind of visible air pollution over your city. Let's see what else we have. The trees are looking really nice. And even the ones that are far away, they're rendered way better than the original game. The water effects, there is a lot of reflection going on. That's nice. That's another thing that we don't get in the original game. Now, what do we have on this map? We have residential buildings, residential signature buildings. Once again, I'm wondering what are those signature buildings? And the residential areas, what do we have here? Okay, so these might be the signature buildings, whatever that's supposed to mean. I'm wondering if that's some kind of update for historic buildings, something that we used to have in the original game. That could be it. I might be wrong. And what else do we have here? Okay, so pretty much everything that is not highlighted is office and industry. So office and residential, it seems like you can build them much closer together, and that doesn't cause as many issues as that would in the original game. Commercial being close to residential, all the noise. But we'll see how that goes when we actually get our hands on the game. Okay, so this bridge is the one that we saw on previous pictures on a previous video. far out in the back. Not too bad, quite a good level of detail. And the trams, I absolutely love them. The trams look so much better than the ones that we used to get in Cities Skylines 1. Okay, now this one is a bit controversial. So there's a whole bunch of things that I do like about it, like the billboards looking a little bit more realistic and less annoying and less ugly. But once again, everything is super car-centric. One of the biggest complaints I have right now, I haven't seen a single bike lane in this entire trailer. So that's quite weird. I mean, the game has been in the works for quite a few years, and you would expect that to be part of the base game as well. I don't know if that's gonna be in the game or not, but for now, it's just your average American city. A whole bunch of super tall buildings, a wide road, parking on the side. Yeah, that's it. I want to see the European theme. I'm hoping it's gonna be a little bit better than what we're seeing now. Okay, now this one is pretty interesting. So the buildings now come with the parking. I'm wondering if there's a way to set how far do you want it to be from the road itself, or how much parking you can include. Maybe it's a little bit too much to ask for, but we'll see. And now the road tool does look so much better. So you do get all the angles, but it just seems a little bit more intuitive to use and a little bit more natural, which is definitely a nice thing. And once again, if you look at the intersection, you can see the path in which the cars travel. So that's quite realistic. You're going to see, all the marks from tires and stuff like that. That's nice. And now these road markings are looking absolutely normal as compared to what we've seen in the beginning of the videos. Okay, what else do we have here? We have the population. The population, so for this city, it's 90,000 people, but it does look like a pretty big city. So it seems like realistic population is one of the things that didn't make it to the game, but that makes a lot of sense because otherwise it probably would be way more demanding for your computer. Age distribution, pretty much the same thing that we used to see before. Moved in and moved away is a pretty good thing. So you can see how many people you're actually attracting or scaring away for that matter. Now this screenshot does look really nice. So everything is neatly organized. Everything just looks so much better. And all of these networks are finally looking the way that modding community tried to get them to look for how many years? That was 7 or 8 years by now. Alright, that was one of the most popular screenshots. So that's your city. In the evening you can see something resembling stars. Pretty nice lighting with the buildings. And the roads. Oh, that looks really nice. If you see the tram tracks here. That is another nice looking thing. Overall it just... Well, that's a snowman. Okay, they had to put something odd and something weird. They did put it. So right on the grass there you have a snowman. And if I'm not mistaken, there is somebody sitting on the grass, which is another realistic touch. That will be nice to see. And I like this little transition to a road with a median. That does look good as well. And the rendering distance, once again, makes it look just so much better. Alright, now the most important part is the system requirements. So the minimum ones are pretty reasonable for 2023. And if your computer is somewhere around recommended or slightly above it, you're probably going to be safe. For the most part, yeah, I should be safe. Anyway, let me know what do you think about the new trailer. And what do you expect from Cities Skylines 2 in the comments below. If there's anything I missed in this trailer, let me know in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.